You know, when you're chatting with an AI or just scrolling through your feed, it feels, well, effortless, right? Almost like magic. But behind that screen, there's a huge physical world of servers and chips and infrastructure. And that world is getting unbelievably hungry for power. Today, we're going to dig into how one of the biggest tech giants on the planet is making a really radical bet to keep the AI revolution switched on.
Okay, so let's just get right to the big question, the one that probably popped into your head already. Why on earth is Meta, the company behind Facebook and Instagram, suddenly getting into the nuclear power game? I mean, it sounds a little out there, but as you're about to see, it's a move that's basically born out of pure necessity. So first up, let's break down what Meta is actually doing here. And let me tell you, this isn't just some small side project. This is a massive strategic shift towards a pretty controversial energy source, and it's all to fuel their giant AI ambitions.
So here's the bottom line. Meta has officially signed deals to buy a gigantic amount of electricity, and they're buying it directly from nuclear power producers. This move basically makes them one of the most powerful customers in the energy market, and it's totally changing the relationship between big tech and the people who generate our power.
And when you dig into the details, the sheer scale of these deals is just wow. We're talking about a 20-year deal with Vistra and TerraPower. I mean, that's a long-term commitment. Then there's a partnership with a company called Oklo, which, get this, happens to be backed by OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman. And they're not just buying electricity. They are actively funding the development of 2 advanced reactors from TerraPower, and they have an option for 6 more. This is a long-term, multi-billion-dollar bet on the future.
So what is driving this enormous gamble on nuclear power? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. It's the almost unbelievable, insatiable energy thirst of modern artificial intelligence. Think about it. Every single time you use a generative AI, whether you're creating an image, writing an email, or summarizing a document, it's guzzling a staggering amount of power. Training these incredibly complex models and then running them for millions of users creates an energy footprint that makes everything that came before in the tech world look tiny. And this is such a key point, because it's not just about the electricity itself. The entire AI supply chain is gobbling up resources. You need the specialized chips, you need sprawling data centers to put them in, you need massive amounts of power to turn them on, you need tons of coolants, often water, to keep them from overheating, and you need the whole network to connect everything. It is a physical resource puzzle on a global scale. And this quote from Professor Chirag Shah just hits the nail on the head. The traditional power grid that we all rely on, it just wasn't built for this kind of demand. Tech companies are hitting a massive wall, and they're realizing they can't just plug these new AI factories into the existing system. They have to go out and find their own power sources.
Which brings us to our next point. Meta is not doing this in a vacuum. Not at all. What we are witnessing is a full-blown arms race, or maybe a better term is a power race, among all the big players in AI.
It's an industry-wide scramble. Yeah, Meta's deals are making headlines because they're so huge, but look at the competition. Google and Microsoft are right there with them, locking in their own nuclear partnerships. The new frontier for competition isn't just about who has the smartest AI. It's about who has enough energy to actually run the thing.
But look, this big pivot to nuclear energy, it's not a simple solution. It is a move that is absolutely packed with enormous stakes and some really significant risks. Not just for these companies, but for all of us. And that really brings us to the core dilemma here, doesn't it? On one side, people who support this see it as a huge step towards a clean energy future for technology. But on the other side, critics see a really high-stakes gamble with some potentially dangerous consequences.
The argument for nuclear power is pretty straightforward. Compared to burning fossil fuels, it's way cleaner. That's the narrative these companies are pushing. But, and it's a big but, the counter-arguments are just as serious. I mean, the problem of what to do with radioactive waste hasn't magically disappeared. And there's a deep irony in using a clean power source that allows data centers to consume unbelievable amounts of another precious resource, water. And this is where it really hits home for everybody. When a few giant corporations lock up huge chunks of future energy production, what does that do to prices for the rest of us? And we also have to be real about the timelines here. Some of these new reactors aren't even scheduled to be online until 2035. Are these concrete plans, or are they just hopeful projections? The reality is, big tech is quickly becoming big energy, and that has massive implications for the entire market. Which leaves us with this really powerful thought from analyst David Nicholson. The race to power AI is forcing these companies to make these gigantic, world-changing bets. Some of them might launch us into a new era of progress. And others could become legendary stories of spectacular failure. Right now, it is impossible to know which is which, and we're all just watching one of the biggest technological gambles in modern history unfold.